Welcome to the December 2024 edition of the Inside Nutley Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco, and today we are honored to talk to one of the true sports trailblazers of the 20th century, women's basketball legend and Nutley resident, Carol Blazejowski. Welcome, Carol.
Hello there.
How did one of the true pioneers in the history of women's sports end up living and raising a family in Nutley, New Jersey?
Well, that's a pretty interesting story. I went to college at Montclair State University. It was college at the time. And I was familiar with the area. I student taught in Clifton. Lived in Clifton for a while. And then, the people that were friends and on the basketball team talked about Nutley. And Nutley's a great town. So I was looking to buy a house, and I got on my bike, and I started riding around Nutley. And I saw the beautiful parks, and I said, wow, this is a pretty nice town. And on the property that I live on right now, there was a big house, evidently, that got leveled and subdivided into three lots. The door was open to one of the houses that was pretty much finished. Got off my bike, went in the house, saw the guy, was putting in the tile. This house for sale? Yeah, it's for sale. I said, okay, how much? $175,000. I said, sold. And that's exactly how the story went.
What year was this?
1986.
Wow. Okay.
So I've been here for 38 years, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Has it turned out what you thought it would be?
I didn't know other than what people said. People had such an affinity to this town, but it was really wonderful to raise a family. I was so engaged with the community. I'm really connected to the recreation department. Basketball's my thing. I love working with the kids for many, many years. The services, the parks, the Italian restaurants. It's just really, I worked in Manhattan for 25 years, so the location was perfect for my commute there. To the airport, I drove a lot, I flew a lot, so the location was also perfect. And then who knew 35 years later that the medical school would be in Nutley, and my daughter was in the first graduating class of Hackensack Meridian Medical School. So I'm very proud of that as well, and that it was right here in our hometown.
You've been very active with our town's Parks and Recreation Department through the years. Tell us about that.
When you're a little kid and you played basketball and you had no opportunity, as I did as a female, my goal in life was, I had many goals, but one was always to have the key to the gym and have access to a recreation department where I could play basketball. I know it sounds probably foolish to your audience, but now I really wanted to get engaged with the local community recreation department. And I had my kids, so I started coaching them, and they were in the 4th grade. Another father and I, Greg Bevere, is also a resident here. We coached our kids there, and we brought them all the way up, won a championship in the 7th grade. And now I do programming in there for K through 8th grade. Very active with the high school kids with shooting and go watch all their games. I still play, believe it or not, my little Sunday hoop games. So all of that has been really a fun purpose for me as I get older. Never thinking that from way back then till now, I'd still be very much involved and have tremendous access to the recreation department, which I'm very grateful for.
Were you surprised at how welcoming the community was?
I didn't know. I really I didn't know what it was like to own a home and to be engaged in the community, and kind of just did my own thing. Again, I worked in Manhattan for 25 years, and it was a 24/7 job. I didn't spend that much time early on in my career. But then as time went on and the kids got older, I wasn't surprised at all. It was again, early on when people talked about how great the town was, I started to realize it. And I really support, the local stores and whatnot. I think it's important. So, very ingrained.
We've done almost 30 of these podcasts, and a lot of the people that we talk to who have, become very successful in their field and have traveled a lot, they seem to always say that no matter where they go, there's always some kind of connection to Nutley. Do you find that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a brotherhood. And, somebody knows somebody from Nutley. If you grew up in Nutley, you married somebody from Nutley, you came back to Nutley, and then you raised kids in Nutley. So yes, it's a woven town, and that's kind of neat as well.
And that's pretty unusual these days, right?
Very unusual. People are so transient, but there is that core group of residents from early on whose generation after generation stay here, and that's I have a real respect for that.
All right, let's go back in the time machine. You were born in Elizabeth, correct?
I was born in Elizabeth and raised in Cranford, New Jersey.
So what was growing up in Cranford, New Jersey like?
So I grew up in Cranford, New Jersey, and at the time, Title IX wasn't in existence, so there weren't any opportunities for young gals, even on a recreation level, let alone high school level or college level, no scholarships, anything. So I was the tomboy in the neighborhood. My friends were all guys. It was the gamut of sports: baseball, softball, football, tackle, and then basketball last. My gym teacher, Mr. Sadowski, I'll never forget him. He says, "Carol, you're tall, you're athletic." He handed me a ball, and it was kind of love at first sight, and I never, stopped loving it. But it was great. Cranford High School didn't have a team until my senior year in high school, and I went to the AD. This is a true story. I went to the AD and politely asked him if we could have a team my senior year. And he said, there was no budget for the girls. And I said, well, you have freshman boys, and JV boys, and varsity boys, and maybe eliminate one of those teams and have a girls varsity. And I was playing with all his team on the streets, on the corners. That's where I played basketball. That's where I learned. I had to go down to the playground and play, and all those guys were playing there. I was always in games with them. And I said, I'm just going to be forced to try out for your team if, because he coached the boys varsity team there, if you don't provide a girls team. He wasn't happy about that. So anyway, as the story goes, there was a girls varsity team. And my first year, my senior year, we were 30-1. We lost to Gloucester Catholic in the finals, big farm girls. But that started the Cranford girls basketball program.
Oh, what gave you the confidence to go up to an administrator at that age and say, hey, we need a women's basketball team?
Well, I knew that there were some teams in the parochial schools. Catholic school systems had them. They had CYOs. And I couldn't understand why the public schools didn't. I don't know. I've always been somebody who was never afraid, but always respectful. Didn't hurt to ask the question. Just really wanted to play. I was sick of just being a street ball player, which actually served me very well, to be honest with you. But I wanted something organized. I wanted something that could be competitive against, other teams in a formal way. So I asked, and there you have it.
Did you come from a big family?
No, it's just my sister and I. My parents were not athletic at all. My mom was a little bit of a tomboy as well. Dad would, throw the ball around with me at times. But, they came and they were my biggest fans. Came to all my games at Montclair State, not so much high school. But no, really, my sister was totally different than me. She was a nurse, no sports at all. So we're totally different. And really, I just enjoyed activity and sports all the time. Rode my bicycle everywhere to get in games of any sort.
Was the Cranford boys team supportive of your actions?
It's funny. When I first started playing, I was a little nervous. Got the quizzical looks, got the comments, got everything. Always brought up basketball because I knew someone would, a lot of times they didn't have balls, so I always had a ball under my arm. And I'd wait to get in games, and once I got in, and then it's really just a matter of respect. You earn the respect. I could shoot better than a lot of them, smarter than a lot of them, and I was quite tough. Today's game's a lot different than it was back then. If you got hit, if you weren't dead, you better get up and you better continue to play. And so I never let that bother me. So then it was a respect thing they had for me, and never questioned again. But every time I went to a new group, I'd have to start all over. Earn the respect, pray they'll get in if they needed one, and then kind of earn the respect. There really wasn't an involvement of the community at that point. Couple parents, the boys' team kind of did their own thing. I don't think they were ready yet for that societal change that girls were now playing sports. We had to play in the old gym. Cranford had 2 gyms, the new gym, which the boys had. The girls had the old gym, which was perfect. It was rustic and historic, and so it was perfect for us. So we had our own facility. We could practice anytime we wanted. So it was great.
Who were some of your basketball idols growing up?
I'm asked who my basketball idols are growing up all the time. And I really don't have any. And I'll tell you why. Growing up, there wasn't many NBA games or college games. The NCAA, didn't broadcast their games on TV at all at the time. So I didn't really have anybody to follow closely. You read the newspaper and whatnot, but you never got to see really anyone play until later on. And then of course, I loved, there were no women for sure. Women got nothing. No recognition, sponsorships, or right now, right now the NIL and everything's crazy, but back then there weren't even scholarships for women. But Larry Bird is someone I always loved. He's tough, could shoot, smart, unassuming. And of course, I think the greatest player that ever played was Michael Jordan. The game for the women has come a long way, and now young girls have plenty of idols. But I really had none. And it's funny, I'd find pieces of if you're a high school player, I'd find a piece of their game, and then I'd bring it back to the courts and work on it. I didn't care who it was. But little bits of everything and crafted my own game around pros, some college players, some street ball players.
Did you ever get to meet Larry Bird?
Oh, yeah, I met Larry Bird, absolutely. Team USA, met him at Hall of Fame gatherings, met him as a member of the Indiana Pacers. I worked in the NBA for 6 years, so I've met a lot of NBA players.
Okay, so you graduate high school, and then you're on to Montclair State for your record-breaking career. Why Montclair State?
I went to Montclair State because there were no scholarships for women. It was close to home. It was right up the Parkway. My cousin went there. She was an art teacher. I didn't know anything about college, to be honest with you. But I knew somehow you had to get a degree to get a job. So I guess I was going to be a phys ed teacher. I was good in sports. So I went there and, student taught, but never taught a day in my life. It turned out not being a teacher at all. But I got my degree. They had a decent basketball team. I thought I could help them. And, the rest is history.
Did they recruit you at all?
I got a call from the coach, yes. The PE teacher at Cranford, Miss McCarthy, called the coach up at Montclair, and then she called me. But it was really just a phone call. Why don't you come here? You can help us. And I was going there anyway because we had no money. We were like lower income, lower income, and growing up. And so, try it.
Had their women's program been around a long time?
The women's program was around. They were good on a local level and won some games on the state level, but never got beyond the region or into a national spotlight.
And then you put them on the international map.
Well, I certainly had a wonderful career there. I had some wonderful teammates who knew the game, knew how to work with me. Couldn't have done it without them. And we started at the state level. Then next, my next year we went to the regional level, and then the last 2 years we're in the national level, and then, ultimately we went to the first ever Final Four, which people don't know. People only think that the NCAA, Final Four. We were in the first ever Final Four.
That's amazing. What's even more amazing is that you led the nation in scoring with an average of 33.5 points per game in 1976 and 1977. Your junior year, and then as a senior, you led the nation in scoring with 38.6 points per game in 1977-78. Those are still records, correct?
Yes, I still hold the records for scoring at Montclair State and also at Madison Square Garden for college,
right?
Not for pro,
right?
For college,
right? And there was no 3-point line.
There was no 3-point, and we played with the men's size ball. The women's ball is an inch in circumference smaller. No 3-point, but that's okay. I mean, if there was a 3-point, I took a lot of 3-point shots anyway. So imagine how many points.
I was going to say, what do you think your average would have been?
I don't know.
He would average 50 points a game.
Maybe, but it's okay. It is what it is, and it's.
In doing my research, I found that there's not a discrepancy, but there's a change in the scoring patterns once the NCAA came in and started to monitor women's basketball. But so a lot of the records are kind of jumbled with, the new game and the NCAA prior to the NCAA. But apparently, even with all of that, your record, your average of 38.6 is still the women's record for all time, correct?
I think there's in terms of average, I think so. Overall points. Remember, it's hard again to say who was the tops because even though the NCAA didn't come in there was some players that they played more games. They played more championship games and conferences and whatnot while it was before the NCAA. So there were multiple games ahead of me in terms of points. But I'm right up there in the very, very top tier of points.
How's that feel?
It feels great. To me, it was never about points. It's nice to have them. It's nice to have records. But it was always about winning and always about experience. Never knew how many points I had. It was W or loss. Thank God we had more W's than we had L's. But again, you reflect back years later on the experience, the friends, the places you visited, the people you met. I mean, that is all invaluable, right? To me, it's cherished memories, and so that's the really fun part of it: to be a team, to be a unit that experienced greatness.
I'm not sure if you know this or not, but during your senior year, in fact, the Nutley girls basketball team were the state champions.
Is that right?
Yeah, 1970
wow.
State champions.
Wow.
I think that's the only one.
Wow. So who was coaching at that time?
Oh, man, was it Miss Melnick?
Oh, Anna Melnick, who was a friend of mine.
I don't know. I know Miss Melnick was...
Or Restaino?
I don't think Mr. Restaino ever won a championship. I'm pretty sure it was Anna
Melnick. It could have been. I can't remember, but I know Anna very well. She went to Montclair State.
In 1978, you were the first ever recipient of the Wade Trophy as the nation's finest collegiate female player. Tell us about that.
So the Wade Trophy was introduced in 1978, and again, it wasn't part of my goals. I knew that I was in hot contention with a couple of other people, primarily Ann Myers, who played for UCLA, who happens years later to be a wonderful dear friend of mine and her family. And we happened to play at Pauley Pavilion, her home court at UCLA, in the finals in 1978. So I thought for sure she would get the nod. They had all scholarship players. She was a name. Her brother Dave Myers played in the pro Final Four on her court. They won it. So I was really surprised when they called me and said that I was the inaugural winner. So it was very, very moving for me. And even, I have a trophy prominently displayed in my office in my house here. It's always nice to be the first.
Yeah, right.
It's always nice to be the first of anything.
How did your parents feel about all those accolades, and especially something like the Wade Trophy?
Yeah, my parents were my best fans. They wanted to come to everything. They didn't know much about sports, but it was something for them to do and get excited about. Of course, it's hard to watch your kid play. You're more nervous. I know that firsthand. It's hard to coach your kid as well. But it brought them joy. It brought them pride, and it was great for me to be able to celebrate that with them.
Yeah. Okay, so you graduate college, and you sign with the New Jersey Gems of the Women's Pro Basketball League, which I don't remember that league. And when people talk about the WNBA, they never mention anything like the first Women's Pro Basketball League. So tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so everybody talks about the WNBA, and I'm so happy they are. But prior to that, there was the WBL, Women's Basketball League, and it was short-lived, 3 years, well, maybe 2.5. I graduated in 78. The timing on this was a little crazy because I graduated in 78, and I got cut from the 1976 Olympic team, so I wanted to play in the 1980 Olympic team. At the time, as ironic as it sounds, you weren't allowed to collect any money or you weren't allowed to be professional. And so I couldn't play in the WBL because those players were getting paid. So I waited for 2 years to 1980 Olympics. We don't know what happened there. But I did play the final year of the league, and played for New Jersey Gems. We practiced at the Imperator practice facility in North Bergen. We played at South Mountain Arena in West Orange over the ice. It was freezing cold, nobody in the stands, no TV, no sponsorships, but boy, did we have fun. And never got paid. We flew, we didn't have to bus at least, but you know what? It was an experience that I'll always cherish. So it was fun. So again, a part of my history that I was able to share with so many people. Played almost for nothing, but really for the love of the game. For me, it's always about the love of the game. In anything you do, it's about the love of the work, about the love of the sport, about anything. You're never driven by money.
Right.
Always if you really love what you do, money takes care of itself. And it's not about money anyway. It's always about experiences and opportunities it leads to, and friendships you garner, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. I believe you also worked for Adidas, correct?
So after the 1980 Olympics, that was the year of the boycott. Jimmy Carter was the president. At the time, there was a boycott. So I made the team, captain of the team, but then we didn't go. We did play in a pre-Olympic tournament in Bulgaria. It was kind of our Olympics, and we won. We won the gold. So that was very satisfying. And then, heartbroken because we didn't get to go, but still I'm an Olympian, regardless. And then, yes, then I had to look for employment. It's like, oh no, now I got to work for a living. No more pro league. What could I do? Could I go overseas? I could go overseas and play ball. I could have gone to Italy on the French Riviera or in Venice in Italy, but they paid, minimal for women. And then I was away from home, my home body, really am. And at the time, at Adidas, and especially in the footwear industry, there were no women in sports working for these companies. So I said, okay, let me weigh the pros and cons, still play, have fun, that's your job, or get in the ground floor and help build something. And that's what I did. So I chose to go to Adidas. I worked in the Northeast. I was a promo rep, so I worked with all colleges, men's, women's, tried to sell them my goods, shoes, whatnot. And Adidas was king at the time. It was pre-Nutley, pre-Reebok, pre-anybody, pre-Under Armour, all these names you hear of today. We were the king. So it was fun. Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, Steffi Graf, Ivan Lendl. I met them all. It was a special time. And I got to learn the sports industry. And then, of course, within that industry, you connect and you network and you meet people from all different sporting goods companies, and you learn how to manufacture, and you learn everything. It was so interesting to me. And it kept me in basketball, and sports.
Then you went to work for the NBA. What did you do there?
Yeah, so my tenure at Adidas lasted for 10 years. It was a great 10 years. Got my feet wet in the industry. And through networking, I got a job in licensing at the NBA. So that's all that's writing the contracts and learning the manufacturing about all these products, the hats with the bowls on it, and the bags and the shirts, the Celtics, the Knicks, all the NBA teams, go to all-star games, go to championships, do all that kind of stuff. That was really fun because it was all about basketball at the highest level. Working for David Stern, he was a genius. Tough boss. But I met some wonderful people there. Got to travel a lot, play on NBA courts, meet NBA players. It was kind of storybook for me. It was, I was in my element, right? So I did that for 6 years, Midtown, 5th and 52nd Olympic Towers, right across the street from St. Pat's Cathedral. So that was exciting. Just the energy of New York and being in the big league. And then after that, there is where I met Ernie Grunfeld, who was the GM of the Knicks. And I met his wife, who was in the sporting good company, Nancy Grunfeld. And I met all those good people from leadership positions at different NBA teams.
And then you took all that experience and took it over to the WNBA, which was brand new at the time, correct?
So I had the pleasure of not only working for David, but David's right-hand person, who was Val Ackerman, who is now and has been the Big East commissioner. And she is just brilliant, hardworking, and David gave her the keys to start the WNBA. So I was on her team because the NBA at the time also managed USA Basketball. And I was very connected to that program, and he said, we have to, in 1996, after the Olympics, we debut in Atlanta, women's basketball, and then we're going to launch the league in 1997. And run up to that, you have to be a part of that. So we had like a core of 6 people that actually took a barnstorming college team that was going to be the national team and played against colleges. So we did everything for that. Sold tickets, sponsorship, merchandising, travel, everything, all as a precursor to 1996. And then when they launched the league in 1997, there were 8 charter members. New York was one of them. And they needed a GM. And so Ernie Grunfeld, I wrote his name up formally, who was the GM of the Knicks, called me up. I knew him very well. I always asked him for Knick tickets. And he said, how'd you like to be the GM of your own team instead of telling me how to run the Knicks? And I said, really? He says, yeah, we need a GM for the Liberty. Would you like to do it? And I said, when can I start? I mean, it was that easy. I didn't know the first thing about running a franchise of any sort. 0. But the thought of being the first GM of the first professional team in New York City, the WNBA, it was something just really energizing for me. It was just an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. So then I met with Dave Checketts, who was the big dog at the Garden at the time, and lo and behold, I moved up the road, 12, 15 streets, and I'm at Madison Square Garden, January 1, 1997, and have to do everything for the next 6 months to start a professional women's team, the New York Liberty.
You must see what's happening now with the WNBA and be immensely proud.
Well, the WNBA, when I first started, they said, the media said, are you going to last 5 years? I said, absolutely. Fingers crossed, for a lot of prayers. And then we went 5 years, and they said, are you going to last 10 years? I said, absolutely. And now here we are going on, 28, 29, something like that. And to think of the people that started that league, and it was David Stern's vision and his support with other NBA teams, and then Val Ackerman taking the reins, organizing everything, and then putting the right people in place. And so just remembering everything we had to do to start a franchise. Now, I got a lot of help from the New York Knicks and their personnel, but I'm telling you, I started in an office, off the freight elevator, with nothing but a pen and a telephone. And I had to do, I think I worked 18 hours a day. I believe I worked 18 hours a day. I had to get a team, get a coach, get personnel, get a logo, sell tickets, sell sponsorship, do community, you name it. Find a practice facility, where are the players staying, what's the salary cap? Your head's ready to blow off. But it was just, for me, it was a challenge. And the thought that I played in Madison Square Garden, I had the record in Madison Square Garden, and now I was running a women's basketball team that their home court is Madison Square Garden. I mean, it doesn't get any more storybook than that. So, look, the great pride that I have for me and my team, and it was just a handful, but with the help of a lot of other people from the Knick organization and the league, I'm extremely proud of where we are today as a league in women's sports and the societal views that it's changed. And everyone who embraces it. And Caitlin Clark, to me, is terrific. A real generational player. So, I could go on and on and on. You hear the energy in my voice. It was just a fun time for me. It wasn't work. It was my livelihood and it was my lifestyle. That's kind of how I like to explain it. My children grew up in Madison Square Garden sitting on, front court, on the floor. This is a special time.
You're very blessed.
Yeah, I am blessed beyond. I am blessed I'm blessed as a player. I'm blessed as an executive in sports. I'm blessed as a mom. I'm blessed to live in Nutley. I'm blessed with all my friends. It's been a great ride.
All right, let me go down the list here. You're in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, which is the big Hall of Fame that the NBA, the WNBA, college, anybody who's ever accomplished anything, all the legends are in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. You're in that Hall of Fame. You're in the New Jersey Hall of Fame. You're in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. You're in the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. You're in the Montclair State University Athletic Hall of Fame. And most importantly, you're in the Nutley Hall of Fame. Which one means the most?
It's I'm very humbled by all of it. The Nutley Hall of Fame is great. I grew up in Cranford, but I was there 17 years. I left a couple of years in, Clifton and Montclair, bouncing around a bit. But then I've been in Nutley for 38 years, and a dear friend of mine, Pat Rataco, nominated me for the Nutley Hall of Fame. And it was like, wow, absolutely, because I consider this my home. Not home, wasn't born and raised here, but certainly have been here, more than half my life. So, it was a great honor.
Let's go back to the Naismith Hall of Fame. Obviously, like I said, that's the Hall of Fame where all the legends of basketball are enshrined. Tell me some stories about your experience there.
Well, when I got inducted in 1994 to the Hall of Fame, Basketball Hall of Fame, Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame is its proper name, up in Springfield, Massachusetts. That's like the big kahuna, right? And, I was waiting for the call. There was only a handful of women, maybe 2 or 3 women in at the time. There had been hints. I was at the NBA working, and there would be hints that maybe I would get the call, but you never know. Right, you always have that reservation of doubt. And then it was a snowstorm. I was driving up the Parkway. I remember it vividly. And I got a call from John DeLeva. And he says, this is John from the Hall of Fame. And I want to congratulate you because you've been nominated to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I just said, I was by myself in a car on the Parkway in a snowstorm headed home. And I was like, how do you celebrate? It was great. So that was pretty special. The dinner was special. The greats of the game. I was in awe. I was in awe. A lot of the old timers have since passed, when I got inducted, but to meet the John Woodens and the Will Chamberlains and the Bill Russells and JoJo Whites and Clyde and Monroe, the greats of the game, it was special. As I asked for everybody's autograph because, man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm going to take every minute of it to suck it in. And so many of my friends came up from Montclair, from all my walks of life. Guys I played in the streets with were up there to support me. It was pretty special. And now I go back every year, and I take my son. That's kind of like our thing. We go every year. We meet the new players and just hear the stories when they get inducted. It's a whole presentation. It's heartwarming.
Gonna hit some random thoughts right now. Just throw something out there, see what you think. Women's sports in the year 2024.
Women's sports is really, since I was a kid, not only basketball, but tennis, soccer. You have the Women's Professional Soccer League now. They talk about, flag football in high school for girls wrestling. It has really come miles. It has miles to go. We've only cracked the surface. But I think the opportunities are there. The role models are now there. I think society's views about women have been more positive and engaging. And I just think it's wonderful. The media, the NILs, the TV, and it's all about exposure and stories. Who has great stories? And it's talent, too. You've got to have the talent. And that's what's happening. But that happens because you have great feeder programs, right? And then AAU programs, and then high school programs, and then college programs. So there's a pathway for young girls. There's no pathway for me. But there's a pathway now. And then more people are engaged in terms of coaching and have that passion to make people and players better. So I think, again, the only direction to go for women's sports is still up. But it's, nothing's more satisfying to me like this summer when Caitlin Clark was playing and the guys I'm playing ball. The game's on at 2 o'clock, ABC, and I'm like, wow, we have arrived. We have arrived.
You just touched on this, but I'm interested to know what your true feeling is on name, image, likeness, the NILs that are really taking over college sports these days.
The NIL thing, I'm somewhat disappointed the way the college route has gone. I think you're going to see more college coaches in the men's, not so much the women, because the women are just starting to earn more money, the coaching ranks. But for me, it's, you're getting college education, and yes, you're generating revenue for the school, but you're getting a free education. And I think all this money with NIL is ridiculous. I think that you're only going to have kids aren't going to stay at one institution because it's always about the highest bidder now. Go to the transfer pool, who's giving me this much money, who's giving me this money. So it's not for the love of the game anymore. It's not for the allegiance to the school anymore. I don't think it was ever, quite frankly, for males about the education, although I'm sure there's many that it is. However, I just think it dilutes the true meaning of a college education and the pride of playing for the school. It's become just a big, corporate enterprise. And maybe that's the way of the world these days. I don't know. Things change.
Yeah, it seems to cheapen the game and make it less interesting.
Yeah, I'll still watch it. I just, I can't become familiar with any players because they're always jumping around so much. I guess it's good for the women because they never got anything. They'll certainly get much less than the males, but maybe that's one good thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a purist. But again, with time, everything changes.
Okay, tell me, who would you put on the Mount Rushmore of women's basketball?
Wow, that's a tough question. You know what?
Besides yourself, I should say.
Well, okay, I'm number one. I really don't know. You got to look at different generations, and that's one I'd have to think long and hard about. So I'm going to pass on that question.
We touched on Caitlin Clark briefly before. Just wanted to get your opinion on all the controversy about her in the WNBA last year. What are your thoughts on that?
Caitlin Clark is special. I enjoyed watching her in college. I love watching her in the pros. She's right with the right franchise, and now I thought she did a great job this year, even though she was a rookie. A lot of controversy around. There's always that kind of stuff that happens, the cattiness on men's or women's side when the new sheriff's in town. But I thought she handled herself with a great amount of maturity and class. So some of that time, they used to say in women's basketball, any press is good press. People were talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of it was blown out of proportion. But I think the fact that people are talking about it, people are watching it, people are watching the league, they're getting more sponsorship, more interest because of Caitlin Clark. And there'll be others. There'll be others after her. But she's the one that, it's kind of like who takes it to the next level. Like Bird and Magic definitely took it to the next level, right? And then Michael definitely took it to the next level. And then you're looking at Stefan and the other greats that, okay, now, of course, more interest. And Caitlin Clark is one of those players. So overall, I think the athletes in the WNBA are extraordinary. And it's a joy to watch. And it's really welcoming that there's so many great role models.
Now tell us about something that I know is very close to your heart, the Blaze Hoop Crew.
So, I'm officially retired from a real job. Did that way too many years. Been working since I've been 14. Odd jobs here and there, 3 jobs in college, a wonderful professional career. But then, everything comes to an end. And so I retired, I think it was 2019. But I still needed purpose. We all do when we retire, right? I had started a little basketball cottage business, Blaze Hoop Crew. It's run out of the house here. Joyce Buckwitz and I, my partner, coach, started it, and we did driveway coaching with kids who never learned how to play outside. We've been doing this now, I want to say 15, close to 20 years. And now we go into different townships and in different counties and work with grassroots programming there. And we build a model that from K through 8 And then we work with them on just building fundamentals, teaching them how to play the game, running competitions. Did the whole AAU gig many years ago. And so very active at the Nutley Recreation Center. We do our K2 programs in fall and in spring. And we have kids in high school and out of high school now that have played in college, that started in the K2 program there. So talk about a sense of pride when you see these kids. They're young men and women now. And you know what that also does is it brings you closer to the parents too. And then you engage the parents and their interests. And everyone loves their kid, right? So it's just, that's how I met a lot of these people. Last night I went to a high school girls game. And we started these girls in the driveway in the 5th grade. And now out of the, I'd say 12 that are on the team, 9 of them, the core group, were with us since 5th graders. I mean, it's amazing and rewarding, right? And satisfying for us that you had a hand. And not only making them better basketball players, but making them better people and seeing them mature and giving them life experiences, right? So basketball for us just isn't about basketball. It's about life experience and teaching them how to be young men and women. How to shake a hand sometimes. I make all first and second graders in my program in New Providence. When I give them awards, they have to look me in the eye and shake my hand when I congratulate them. I mean, it's simple things like that, but they're important. So that's kind of our shtick. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm excited about it because I'm passionate about basketball. I love kids, and it keeps me very busy throughout the winters. But believe me, I'm retired. And I have long breaks, and then I go to Florida, and then I work on my golf game and my pickleball. I love the pickleball courts right up here, right across from the rec center. You'll see me up there all the time. So if anyone's looking for a game, I stay active, stay busy, and stay very much involved in basketball.
Okay, Carol, now it's time for our quick hits. I'm just going to say a phrase or a couple of things, and you tell me which you prefer.
Oh boy.
Favorite Jersey Shore town?
Bradley Beach.
Why?
I love Bradley Beach because I used to rent a house down there. I have friends down there. It's close to Atlantic City. It's close to, you can take an hour drive. You can take a train down there. I love the beach down there. And so it's very special to me.
Springsteen or Bon Jovi?
Oh boy. I'd say Bon Jovi. Springsteen I like, but Bon Jovi probably gets the edge.
Giants or Jets?
Giants!
Even this year?
Even this year. I'm blue through and through.
Yankees or Mets?
Yankees, love a winner.
I think I know this, but Knicks or Nets?
Knicks. However, the Nets are on the upcoming, so I like young, youthful, athletic players. So we'll watch them a bit.
Favorite all-time female athlete?
Billie Jean King.
Favorite all-time male athlete?
Michael Jordan.
How has Nutley influenced your life?
I consider Nutley my hometown. I built a wonderful business career, and this is my home base, in Nutley. It's been my comfort zone. It's been a wonderful place to raise my family. My daughter went to the medical school, as I said. My son loves this town. He talks about buying a house and moving back. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
So it's just been very special. Met some wonderful people here that are lifelong friends. Very entrenched in the community, and very proud to be a resident of this town.
What are you most proud of?
What are my kids? I'm most proud of my kids. What do you do? It's the hardest job in the world. And you have records, you have a career, it's all about you. And then when you shift gears, none of that matters. So it's, my daughter's a third-year resident at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, the best hospital in the world. She's an orthopedic surgeon. I do miss her going to Minnesota. My son has a great job working in banking in Manhattan. And so, both of them love this town and love the friends they made here and love coming back here. It's home to them.
What about career-wise?
My career, I'm really proud of certainly my basketball playing days. But as an executive, I think in sports, primarily the New York Liberty, I was able to impact a lot of people. I was able to impact young players who finally got an opportunity to play in front of a real audience and make real money. I got to impact parents and fathers who now had some hopes and aspirations for their daughters where it's just not about their sons, right? Now they could come and watch their daughters play, and to see jerseys with women's names on the back was really great. I was able to impact just a lot of different areas with my work with the WNBA and its growth. And so, it's a culture change. It was just a real culture change on a lot of levels. And I had a hand in that with a lot of people. I've always been team. So it wasn't me. I may have led the charge, but boy, I had a hell of a team with me.
There are very few people that you get to interview that have had an effect on a culture or a sport or maybe the world. But you're one of those people. Obviously, you're a legend, a trailblazer, one of the originals that set the path for women's sports and women's basketball in particular. Do you ever just take the time to think about that? Is that something that ever crosses your mind? The effect that you've and the influence that you've had on not just sports and basketball, but on the entire culture, I guess.
Very, very, very rarely, like when you bring it up. I don't really think of any of that. I think of the fun that I had and I was blessed to have had. And if it had residual effect to impact the world, some of it was intentional. A lot of it was intentional, quite frankly. But you don't think about your accomplishments at that level. Now you just kind of think about memories. And then when you're home, of course, your kids don't think of you anymore. It's funny, when we go to the Hall of Fame, my son, and you know this guy, you know Grant Hill, you know Coach K, you know this, blah, blah, blah. Luke, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm in the Hall of Fame. Are you kidding me? So, I'm
You're a legendary mom, right?
That's what it kind of boils down to. And you know what? It's okay. It's just fine.
Basketball legend, legendary mom, Carol Blazejowski. Thank you for joining us on Inside Nutley.
Oh, my pleasure.